In this video, we learn about the World Trade Organization. The predecessor to WTO was GATT. So what is the difference between the two? Firstly, GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, was just a provisional agreement. But WTO is an international organization with its own secretariat, functions, and various other agreements being part of WTO. Secondly, GATT had a very restricted coverage. It was only focusing on goods, but WTO has a broader coverage which includes services and also intellectual property rights. But the biggest drawback of GATT, and which also led to its eventual falling, was that it did not have a strong dispute settlement mechanism, while WTO has a very strengthened DSB, that is dispute settlement body. WTO came into existence with the Marrakesh Agreement. It was signed in 1994 and it came in force in January 1995. This agreement was to be ratified as per national procedures, which means that every country can have a different procedure for ratifying international agreements. Some countries may require parliamentary approval, some countries may require a referendum. So this was left to the country itself. Thirdly, it was legally binding. Once a country ratifies to the agreement, it was supposed to be legally binding on that country. The main parts which were included in this were goods. So GATT, the name was retained, services, General Agreement on Trade and Services, and intellectual property, TRIPS, trade related intellectual property services. The objectives of WTO were as follows: raising standards of living. So basically the trade was a sort of the means to achieve an end which was raising standards of living across the world. So free trade was actually supposed to be the vehicle to increase standards of living. So the eventual objective was to bring more prosperity into the world. Secondly was ensuring full employment, ensuring growth of real income and demand. So what the thinking was that if the entire world grows together and there is freer trade, there will be growth of real income and there will be growth of demand in all the countries. Obviously, the means to that, and also which became the primary focus of WTO, was to expand trade in goods and services. But all this was eventually supposed to lead to sustainable development, which is the eventual aim. So what are the functions of WTO? First of all, it implements and administers agreements. So eventually there are various agreements as part of WTO, which the WTO bodies help to implement and administer. Secondly, it's a forum for negotiations. So you might have heard WTO negotiations are going on this or that. So it gives a platform to all the countries to come together and discuss a particular issue so that they can come to a final agreement. And third, like I mentioned earlier, a very important function of WTO was dispute settlement. So what happens if you have an agreement, but what happens if there is, let us say, a difference of opinion as to what some particular clause of the agreement means? If two countries differ on the understanding, or if some country violates the provisions of the agreement, what is the course open to the other countries? That is where dispute settlement comes in. So this was supposed to be a very, very important function of WTO, and because it has a strong dispute settlement mechanism, WTO is still functional. Third is to administer trade policy reviews, and finally the final function is to cooperate with the World Bank and IMF. So basically all these international bodies are supposed to work together to achieve the final aims which I talked about: sustainable growth and increasing prosperity around the world. So let's look at the structure of WTO. Sitting at the top is something called Ministerial Conference, which is the apex body which meets once in 2 years. Then you have the General Council. Part of it are the dispute settlement bodies, etc. We needn't get into that much detail. Now within the structure of WTO is also divided along the agreements. So you have a Goods Council which looks at the sides of goods and all the agreements pertaining to that, and you have committees under that. Similarly, you have a Services Council and the TRIPS Council, and then you have working committee groups. And finally, you have the WTO Secretariat, which provides secretarial services to all these various councils and committees. Now, how is decision making done in WTO? Decisions are done by negative consensus. So what this means is that WTO does not go by majority. What WTO does is that on any agreement, it requires people to say yes or no, but it will adopt that agreement only when nobody goes against that particular agreement. So negative consensus means you may abstain in a way, but you should not be against it. So that is how WTO makes its decisions. So it's not a majority function, but it's more a consensus function. Secondly, and also which is why WTO is sort of more democratic than the other international organizations, is that it has the principle of one member, one vote. This means that each country, irrespective of its economic might or its let us say importance in the world, will have one vote. Now, some other international organizations, as you may know, have votes based on the holding or the amount you contribute to the corpus of the organizations like the World Bank, IMF, etc. So there you do not have the concept of one member, one vote. So what happens in WTO is that amendments are moved and they keep on getting accepted. So this is basically negotiated legal rules included in the various WTO agreements are, like I mentioned earlier, trade in goods, services, TRIPS, dispute settlement and trade policy reviews. So trade policy reviews just basically means that each country comes up with its trade policy and then WTO can review it. Okay, this is important. What are the basic principles on which WTO functions? First of all is non-discrimination, which includes most favored nation treatment and national treatment obligations. We'll get into details of this in subsequent period. Freer trade, basically this is the basic principle, as you all understand, of WTO. It has negotiations aimed at lowering trade barriers, bringing more predictability and transparency in trade. So when you have binding commitments for something, if let us say a country says that I am going to cut down tariffs by 50% in let's say 3 years, so they are binding commitments. So the other countries who are trading partners know that okay, these trade barriers are going to be reduced up to this level by so and so. So it brings more predictability and transparency. Also, there are restrictions on use of barriers to trade and to encourage transparent trade policies. So if you have, let us say, even artificial barriers to trade or real barriers to trade, what happens is that transparency gets hampered. So you will, if you can't impose trade barriers directly, you might try to impose trade barriers indirectly. But WTO tries to make sure that these kind of policies are not adopted by countries. It promotes fair competition, again by the same non-discrimination principles which I'll just talk about. And also WTO tries to help countries in reforming, so it encourages development and economic reform. Let's begin with MFN, that is most favored nation. This is one of the most important principles of WTO. It means that products of any country will be accorded the same treatment as the product of any other country. So let us say a country A has granted most favored nation to B and C. This means that if either A does not provide any special treatment to anybody, or if A gives any special treatment to the products of B, it will also have to give the same special treatment to the products of C. So in WTO, all countries accord MFN status to all other countries, which means, so if India wants to impose some, let us say, tariff barriers, it will have to impose those tariff barriers for that particular product originating from all other countries. So I cannot say, let us say India cannot say that okay, I will impose a 10% duty on goods originating from all other countries, but I will impose 15% duty on goods originating from China. That will be a violation of the MFN principle, most favored nation. So for instance, there was a Spanish coffee case. Spain had applied a higher duty on some types of coffees which were imported from Brazil, while applying a lower duty on other coffees considered to be light products. So the concept here is light products. So coffee originating from Brazil had a higher duty, while a lower duty on similar coffees from other countries. So this was considered to be a breach of the MFN obligation, and this was sanctioned against. The second important principle is national treatment. This means very simply that once the product lands into the country, so you can have tariffs or duties or whatever you want till the product has not entered. While entering, you can impose these duties. But once it enters the country, it has to be given the same treatment as a product originating within your own country. So if let us say India is importing coffee from somewhere and India is also producing its own coffee. So when let us say Brazilian coffee enters India or any other coffee, we impose a duty of 10%. But once it has paid that duty and entered India, then we cannot have any different treatment for Brazilian coffee versus Indian coffee. So to quote an example, what Japan had did was, in an alcoholic beverages cases, it had imposed excessive taxes on imported vodka versus there was a distilled white spirit of local variety called local shochu. So it had imposed certain special taxes on vodka. So this was considered to be improper because while it could have imposed duties, but excessive taxes on vodka once it has already entered the Japanese market was considered to be a violation of the national treatment principle. Another important thing is tarification. So while WTO does not say that you cannot have any protection to your industries, it says that it prefers the protection by way of tariffs rather than other kind of protections. So for instance, there is a prohibition on the use of quantitative restrictions. What does this mean? So I can say that what is the way I can, let us say, protect my domestic industry. One is I can say that okay, if you can import any product, let us say coffee, but you cannot import more coffee than X kilograms. That is one way of putting restrictions, which is called the quantitative restrictions or quotas. Second is tariff, saying that okay, you can import as much as you like, but on each gram of coffee that comes in, you give me X% of duty. So then there are economic reasons to say why quotas are more inefficient than tariffs. So they say that you should protect the domestic industry by tariffs only. So some exceptions are allowed for some balance of payment reasons, but we won't get into that. But you should remember that basically protection by tariffs is preferred to protection by any other means. Okay, I've been mentioning a lot about the dispute settlement. So dispute settlement is a major function of WTO. In this, firstly you have consultations and then you have panel proceedings. So in dispute settlement, you will go to a panel and put up your case, and finally you will be given a judgment. There is an appellate body where you can appeal against the judgment. So this is in the gist of dispute settlement. So as far as implementation is concerned, again mostly they try to go in for negotiations of compensation which are voluntary and mutually acceptable, but otherwise they do authorize retaliatory action. So if let us say China is doing some unfair trade practice, it may authorize other countries or a particular country which has gone against China in the dispute settlement body, so to impose retaliatory measures on China. Okay, what are the benefits of WTO to businesses in general? First of all, security of access. So tariff bindings, like I said, instead of quota kind of restrictions, and these are non-discriminatory. Stability of access, like I said, it brings in transparency and uniformity in the rules and procedures and predictability. So there are uniform rules. So you will not have a case where one country is being treated unfairly as compared to the other countries. And rights against unfair practices. So unfair trade practices wherein, like we gave examples of affording special treatment to domestic products or affording special treatment to products from some other countries, that is curtailed. So businesses have a right against unfair trade practices. With this we come to the end of this first part of the WTO series. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you liked it. Comments and suggestions are welcome. Thank you.